hour. I don't think anybody I don't think anybody wants that, so I'll keep it as succinct as possible, get as much information out, and then Steve and I will be here for questions at the end. But I'll kick it off. So again, welcome everyone. My name's James. I'm an account executive here at Navan, and I'm also joined by Steve, who is our sales manager. We're excited to be here today presenting this webinar. If you wouldn't mind staying on mute throughout the duration of the presentation, like Leslie mentioned, we want you to be engaged and interactive as we go through. Feel free to drop questions into the chat, and Steve and I will get to them at the end in the Q&A session. So let's get started. So today we're going to cover compliance without chaos, a framework for audit-ready compliance without stress. We'll be covering some common challenges home care agencies face around compliance, some different ways to eliminate operational inefficiencies. We will walk through a simple compliance checklist, which will be made available for you at the end of the webinar. And lastly, we'll finish off with some questions. So, common challenges around compliance. Whether you're a seasoned agency leader or you're just trying to keep your head above water, with all of the regulations, it's always ebbing and flowing. You're in the right place. So we're going to kick things off by talking about some of the biggest compliance challenges that trip up home care agencies here in Massachusetts. I call them compliance potholes. And if you're not actively watching for them, you will probably hit them. So first up would be CORI background checks. So these are mandatory. There's no exceptions. Every caregiver you bring on board needs to be cleared before they start providing care. But here's the thing. If onboarding processes aren't airtight, this critical step can actually slip through the cracks. And when you're onboarding at scale or juggling multiple roles, it's easy to assume that somebody else handled it. We've seen agencies lose track of which caregivers are cleared and which ones aren't, often because the system was manual or inconsistent. So that's a big red flag for the state and major liability for you. One missed CORI check is all it takes to raise serious questions around the hiring practices. The state won't just give you a warning either. They can actually issue sanctions, hit you with fines, and in worst case scenarios, jeopardize your licensure. So to prevent this, you need to centralize your systems that track CORI clearances in real time, flags expirations and gaps, and alerts your admin staff before that's a problem. Build it into your onboarding checklist, make it visible, and tie it into your payroll or scheduling system so that nobody slips through unnoticed. The next thing is certifications. So CNAs, HHAs, CPR, all of these expire and they don't always align on the same timeline. So unless you're tracking them proactively, they will lapse. And let's be honest, it's easy to assume that the team is current, especially if they've been with you for years. But let's remember that experience doesn't replace compliance. So when that expiration hits and they're still on the schedule, still seeing clients, you're exposed. That's a reportable offense. Even worse, if something happens on their shift and they're not properly certified, at that moment, your liability skyrockets. So what you need is a system that flags upcoming expirations at least 30 days in advance. Ideally, you're giving caregivers automated reminders, maybe even with links to renewal resources. It's not just about enforcement, it's also about support. So help them stay compliant so that they don't get caught in a situation where someone's credentials, quietly expired 3 months ago, nobody noticed, and they're put into a situation where it sets you up for risk. The next thing we'll talk about HIPAA. So this is one of the easiest areas for caregivers to accidentally slip up, and it's one of the ones that we hear the most about. It's also one of the costliest for the agency. So you can have the best intentions, you can have the most compassionate team, but if your caregivers aren't trained and regularly reminded, HIPAA violations will happen. It can be as simple as texting a client's name to the scheduler, or mentioning a client's details in the break room, or using a personal phone to take notes without encryption. If you haven't provided clear, ongoing HIPAA training, your team might not even realize that they're crossing the line. This isn't just about fine print, it's about client trust as well. A single breach can trigger a state investigation. It can lead to financial penalties and erode the confidence that families place in your agency. HIPAA compliance needs to be more than an item in your employee handbook. It really has to be built into daily behavior. That means reminders, real world examples, and policies that get reinforced regularly, not just during orientation. And finally is documentation. This one's huge. This is how your caregivers document care right now. Someone uses a notebook, others use their phones, some use nothing. And if you're relying on paper or inconsistent processes, you don't have visibility. You can't spot patterns in care, you can't ensure quality, and you can't really do anything when an audit happens because you're stuck scrambling, looking to put things together. Documentation isn't just a formality, it's actually legal protection for your agency. It's clinical communication, it's your backup in disputes, it supports your billing, your reporting, and your ability to measure outcomes. And when standardized and centralized, you can act fast when something goes wrong. In fact, it's usually documentation that gives agencies the most headaches when an audit comes up because of improper or unorganized documentation. Now, imagine an agency where every caregiver documents in the same system in real time. You can track trends, follow up on concerns, and back up every claim you submit. That's not just compliance, it's operational excellence. And it really does start by setting the right expectations, training your caregivers on it, and giving your team the tools they need to achieve these results. So this is going to take us to our first pulse check. So I want to take a bit of a pause here. I'd like to ask everybody who's joining us to take this poll that's going to be shared by Leslie. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that your caregivers are currently compliant? Now, 1 being, help us, we're drowning, and 10 being, I sleep like a baby every single night. And I'll give about a minute here for the responses to come in.
Excellent. I think that's working. See a few coming in. We have a couple other people that are just joining the call as well. Feel free to take a look at that polling question.
Yeah, I'm seeing some 8s in here, a bunch of 7s. We're in the middle of the pack in the numbers, which I'm liking to see. And, this is not a bad spot to be. Really good for the 8s and the 5s, identifying that there's maybe a couple of gaps. Hopefully, some of the stuff I can share today will, spark some conversations internally and maybe look at ways that we can modify a few things. We've got a 10 in here. I don't know why they're here on this webinar. I'm just kidding. There's always rooms for improvement, but it's really good to know that you've got some systems in place and know that your caregivers are staying compliant. And I think we'll wrap it up there. But I think this is a really good starting point when we think about where we are as agencies. And I think when we look across the board, not even just in Massachusetts, but when we look across every single state, if you have a multi-state agency, if you move from one state to another and you're working there, they all face the same issues. And it really comes down to this ever-evolving requirements or these ever-evolving compliance standards. So the idea behind today is to really identify what are those key things that are really tripping agencies up, and what can we start to do in order to, increase this number from where we are at the beginning to where we are in, say, a year from now. So let's shift gears and look at operations, because I think this is typically where we're getting slowed down as an agency. When we think about administrators, we think about owners, we think about anybody that is not a caregiver. They're working behind the lines, they're working behind the scenes. Everybody wears too many hats. And this is really where things slow down and cause confusion for the agency as a whole. And these are some of the common bottlenecks that we hear about in Massachusetts. So let's start with scheduling. Are you still using spreadsheets or whiteboards? It might seem manageable when your team is small or stable, but the moment someone calls in sick, a client changes their hours, or something changes, that system really does fall apart. Manual scheduling is prone to errors, double bookings, missed shifts, overlooked requests. And once those mistakes start to snowball, you're not just dealing with a logistical headache, you're dealing with unhappy clients, frustrated caregivers, and a lot of unnecessary stress. So automated scheduling tools aren't just about saving time. They really give you real-time visibility, who's available, who's matched to the right client, and where are those gaps. They allow you to fill open shifts fast, They allow you to communicate updates instantly and avoid overloading your most reliable caregivers. And this translates directly into better retention and higher client satisfaction. And I know that we're not talking about retention a lot today, but retention is always top of mind in the home care space. The next one is going to be disconnected communication. Caregivers, coordinators, and clients. It's really a communication triangle. And if that triangle isn't connected, things slip through the cracks. We've seen it all. A caregiver shows up at the wrong time because the update was sent by email. A client gets frustrated because they weren't informed about a caregiver change. A coordinator gets stuck fielding texts, voicemails, and notes from 3 different places, none of which are documented. What you need is a centralized, trackable communication hub, not just a group chat or a random text thread, a place where shift changes, care updates, and notes are logged, accessible, and transparent to the right people. So this isn't just a convenience, it's a strategy to maintain trust, reduce errors, and ensure that everyone is working from the same playbook. Next is training. This is really the silent killer of compliance. If your training isn't standardized, documented, and regularly refreshed, when you really don't know what your staff knows. And when the state asks for proof, you're left scrambling. So inconsistent training leads to uneven care. One caregiver might handle a situation perfectly while another makes a mistake that could have been prevented with a simple refresher. And if you're not tracking who's completed what or when the last time they completed something, you really have no way to identify where those gaps are before they become actual problems. So the fix, a clear learning path, regular in-service updates, a digital log that tracks participation and completion. And again, it's not just about compliance, but to support your caregivers' growth. When they know that you're investing in their skills, they're more engaged, they're more confident, and they're more likely to stick around, which again is helping with that retention piece. And then the last one here is paper-based timesheets and logs. It's 2025. It's time to move on. Paper gets lost. It's hard to read. It's inconsistent. And they don't give you anything usable when it comes to, reporting or audits. In fact, relying on paper can actually increase the risk during a state review because if it's illegible or missing, it might as well not even exist. Digital logs, on the other hand, they provide better accuracy, they save time, and they give you real-time visibility into what's happening in the field. You can instantly verify clock-ins and clock-outs, such as EVV. You can ensure tasks were completed and spot patterns in care, like repeated missed medications or behavior changes, or, the same caregivers repeating the exact same thing over and over again. And the best part, you can actually use this data not just for the compliance piece, but for the continuous improvements. So this will help support caregivers, it helps fine-tune care plans, and it also shows that you value your referral sources and their families so that they do keep coming back to you and they do keep referring new business to you. So it's not just more efficient, it's actually smarter and safer and more strategic. So what do you do with this? How do you tighten up compliance without creating more chaos, more checklists, or more work for your already stretched team? So a couple simple, effective upgrades that can really transform the way that your agency handles compliance without adding to the workload would be first, use an agency management software. If you're still relying on spreadsheets, paper files, or just remembering to check, it's time to move forward. Tools like HHA Exchange, Alaya Care, SwiftOps, and Access Care, they can track compliance in real time. These platforms are designed for home care. They understand the specific needs of agencies like yours. So with the right software, you can instantly see who's cleared, who's expired, and what's coming due. It removes any and all guesswork. You're no longer digging through files or chasing down, team members for paperwork. And if you ever do get audited, you have nothing in one place, or sorry, you have everything in one place, neatly organized and ready to go. The second one is automate licenses and certification reminders. So we talked about it earlier, send out reminders no more than 30 days. Set your systems to send out automated alerts 30 or even go to 60 or even 90 days out. Caregivers can get these reminders, admin can get these reminders, and this way nobody's caught off guard. Even better, some systems can also include renewal links or instructions right in the alerts, so you're not flagging a problem, you're providing a solution, which increases follow through and reduces the risk of gaps. It's proactive, not reactive. And the third, we'll say create a shared compliance dashboard. So this might sound high tech, but it doesn't have to be. It can actually be very simple. It could be as simple as creating a color-coded report or a shared view with your management system. Green means good, yellow means expiring, red means expired. Everyone from schedulers to supervisors can quickly see where things are. This visibility reduces finger pointing, it aligns the whole team, and it empowers caregivers too. When they can check in on their own status and know what's due, they actually become active participants in staying compliant. And fourth, standardize onboarding. So this is a big one, and we're going to go through an onboarding or a compliance checklist, which is going to have a portion of this, but this is foundational to your agency. If your onboarding varies by who's doing it or what kind of day they're having, critical steps will get missed. Use a digital checklist that walks new hires and your staff through every requirement, from query checks to certifications, HIPAA training, documentation protocols. No guessing, no shortcuts. And make that checklist repeatable. Same process every time. Whether you're hiring one caregiver or 20, the standard doesn't shift. The consistency is what protects you in the long term. And here's the heart of it all. Efficiency doesn't mean doing more, it actually means doing it smarter. It's not about piling on new tasks or more tasks or investing in fancy technology just to say you have it. It's about sitting down, figuring out where your gaps are, and choosing tools and systems that best work and align with your needs. Tools that reduce manual efforts, increase accountability, and help you sleep better at night knowing that nothing is slipping through the cracks. Because when your operations are dialed in, compliance isn't this big looming task you're always chasing. It just becomes part of the flow. Compliance is a natural part of this industry. And once it's baked into how your agency runs day to day, that's when the magic happens, when your team isn't just meeting standards, but actually begins to exceed them without burning out. Now, as we think about automations, better visibility, and standardized training, we should also think about delegating responsibilities. So we've talked about AMSs. There's other solutions on the market like Navan, which is an LMS, a learning management software. Administrative staff already wear too many hats as is, and that's why agencies partner with us here at Navan, because we specialize in caregiver training. We provide agencies admin with a full suite of tools that automate training, create and store certificates, and the documentation is readily available when it's needed. And we'll even stay on top of your caregivers to complete their training so that you don't have to, because the last thing you want to be doing is spending an hour every day calling or texting your caregivers to do something. Let us take care of that for you. So you can really focus on the other responsibilities like growing your agency. All right. So this is where it all comes together. We've built a plug and play checklist specifically for Massachusetts home care agencies. This is something you can use today, whether you're just getting organized or you're tightening up an already solid process. So let me walk you through it really quickly. So the first part would be just at that pre-hire. So when we think about background and legal checks, so you're doing your query, you're doing references, I-9s, have this all in one place so you never forget a step. This helps you stay ahead of state inspections and avoid costly hiring missteps. The next would be the health and safety protocols. So PPE, infection control, emergency procedures, tracked and verified. Safety isn't optional. It's the foundation of trust. And during this onboarding process is when we would typically start to introduce in-service training, documentation and logs. So this would be daily care logs, timesheets, incident reports, all with clear standards. This enables audit readiness and improves client outcomes. This is followed by client care duties, every task aligned with the care plan. Nothing falls through the cracks. This ensures you're delivering consistent quality care, whether it's their standard caregiver or somebody covering from them. And this is where agencies would typically consider elective training or upskilling. This ensures that if a caregiver has a client with unique needs, they have the skills and the the knowledge how to best help them. Then we move on to communication standards, how your staff should communicate with clients, families, and you. This sets the expectation and it also protects all relationships. And then the final piece is compliance and training. Annual refreshers, certifications, HIPAA, all tracked in one hub. This keeps everyone current and covered. So after this webinar, Leslie will actually send out a wrap-up email. I know she mentioned that at the beginning. It'll include a PDF of the checklist. Please take this template, make it your own, add and tweak it as needed. If you're looking for a way to better capture and store this information digitally, when I was talking about Navan, our LMS, we actually did just recently launch Forms, which allows agencies to upload their own checklists like this one directly into our platform. And all the documentation is stored under the caregiver profile for, future reference. And to wrap up, just to give a quick recap of today, we went through and we identified some of the most common pitfalls. We highlighted some of the ways that could streamline your day-to-day operations, which if I was going to say two, it would be go digital and delegate. And you now have a practical tool to move your agency forward starting today. Now, if you would like to discuss how Navan could maybe help your agency automate all aspects of your caregiver training, I think Leslie's going to share something with you or even just put it in the chat, raise your hand, let us know that you'd like us to reach out to you. But we'd love to sit down and talk about how we could help you out on the compliance piece. And that wraps it up. I think now, Steve and I would love to hear from you. If there's any questions, I wasn't really paying attention to the chat that have already been posted, or if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, unmute, ask the question. We're here to answer those questions. Thank you.
Yeah, if you want to put their name, an agency in the chat, I will provide James and Steve with your email address. But from the crowd, tell me what you're seeing for deficiencies. What other compliance issues are you folks seeing that we might be able to discuss?
Yeah. Sorry, that's directed at me, right, Leslie?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I think the two big ones that we're really seeing in Massachusetts, the first is the LGBTQ training requirement. We're hearing a lot from agencies that are doing it themselves. They're working with platforms. When the auditor comes in, they're really questioning the content and if it's meeting those standards. So I would say if that is training you're offering, and if it's not, you should be offering it. If you're not offering it, or if you are offering it, sorry, verify it and double check, because that is something that the auditors are dinging a lot of agencies on. The second one that I really see in the state of Massachusetts when we think about annual in-services is the time requirement. So when we think about they need to complete X amount of hours in order to stay in compliance, when the auditors show up in Massachusetts specifically, they're actually asking agencies to provide proof that they sat there and completed the X amount of hours, whether that's 12 hours for the HHA, it's 10 hours, whatnot. So having a time log or having documentation to back up the certificate is crucial.
Right.
And you're welcome,
Any of
Judy.
the folks on the call want to put in the chat or otherwise share what deficiencies you're seeing in your agencies or have heard of? You could also unmute and talk too.
And I do know that I just spitballed
Are we
a ton
seeing
of
anything
information.
on the national level that's
Anything on the national level, like across the board? I think the big ones, like when we think about outside of training, big one that's really starting to come into a lot of states is the EVV compliance piece. We're seeing that a lot of states are bumping up what percentage of agencies need to be compliant. I know Pennsylvania and New York, they just got bumped up to 85 and 90%. And I know that Illinois was getting bumped up. So that's something that we're seeing spread across the country. And it's definitely going to be something that is hitting every state in the future. It just seems to be that the way that they're going to go to track that aspect of caregivers being on site. What is the 5 days before 60-day requirement? Could you maybe elaborate a little bit more on that one? Like in what aspect? Is that during the onboarding portion, like before they're seeing a client?
Or before a client is discharged from service?
Yeah, Steve, are you maybe aware of that question?
Not off the top of my head, but I think we can take a look with our VP of Clinical Compliance and probably follow up with an answer.
60 certification period. Okay.
Another meeting that I encourage you all to attend is monthly. Colleen Piero is doing a regulatory roundup, and she is available to answer questions to members on a variety of federal regulations. Mostly that's more of a Medicare, or sometimes Medicaid standard, but she does also address state level issues as well.
Yeah, and Sheila, we can, like Steve said, we can talk with our VP of Clinical Compliance and we can shoot you an email with the answer to that. It's a good question.
Any other questions for James and Steve? All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for the Lunch and Learn. Continue to check out the regulations and to connect with James for more compliance related content.
Yeah, thanks, Leslie. Yeah, and thank you everybody for joining us today. I appreciate you, taking time out of your day to listen to me talk for 25 minutes. Hopefully it was helpful. Hopefully it was helpful.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Bye.
Take care.